3 months after my ex-girlfriend and I broke up, she suddenly called. She said, "The bar's cleared out. George, why haven't you come pick me up?" My eyes instantly reddened, forcing back a sob. I asked where she was. A soft laugh spilled from the receiver. She laughed until she was breathless. "Ugh, you disgusting simp," she said. "I'm playing truth or dare." I spoke up humbly. "You can call me anything you like. Willow, just come home with me." The line went silent. After a long moment she shouted, "Explain yourself. Who the hell is Willow?" Chapter 1. 3 months after the breakup, my illness relapsed. A nightmare I hadn't had in ages came back to torment me. In the dream I was kissing a Yandere beauty, sharing the most intimate moment, until the next second, when she raised an ice pick. Weeping, she told me she loved me, then drove the ice pick down, but it wasn't aimed at me. Yet my dagger sliced her throat without hesitation. She died smiling, triumphant, begging me to take her home. Agonizing grief flooded my chest, and I jolted awake, gasping. Absurd as it sounds, that dream has tormented me for 3 long years. The searing pain lingers even after waking, trapping me in the anguish of losing a lover. I saw a therapist and confessed I had fallen in love with the woman in my dream. Her name was Willow. When hypnosis and sleeping pills failed, the doctor suggested I start a relationship. Perhaps I could transfer my feelings. If I can't have it, then letting it go might be the cure. That was when Sophia appeared. She looked exactly like the woman from my dream. Chapter 2. I truly believed she was Willow made flesh. The same eyes, the same voice. Even the flirtatious curve of her lips matched perfectly. At the bar she leaned, half drunk, in a corner, tugging my sleeve and asking if I could take her home. That single glance felt like a lifetime reborn. I brought her home and sat up all night on the sofa watching over her. But when she opened her eyes and met my sorrowful gaze, she burst out laughing. She laughed until her shoulders shook. So, nothing happened after all. Feeling a little disappointed. Then she wagged a finger at me. "If you're not functioning down there, you'd better get it treated." Though she was unreasonable, that sense of destiny made me swallow my pride and stay with her. At first I loved her so deeply I couldn't extricate myself. On dusky evenings soaked in blood-red sunset, I would anxiously ask if she would ever leave me. On nights when I woke in fright, I would brush her neck, settling back to sleep only after confirming there was no wound. I poured all the guilt I felt toward Dream Willow onto her, indulging her without limit. I cleaned up every mess she caused, never complaining. I cared for her meticulously during her period, terrified she might vanish the instant I blinked. Sometimes she'd stare at me, entranced, murmuring she wished she'd met me sooner. Back then I didn't understand what she meant, until that Valentine's Day. Chapter 3. Usually aloof, Sophia was suddenly, and very publicly, declaring our relationship. Inside a private room of an upscale restaurant, the impeccably made-up Sophia accepted the bouquet I handed her and breathed in its scent. When she looked up at me, a trace of tenderness glimmered in her eyes. She gave me a gentle smile, stepped closer, nestled into my arms, and said, "How about we take a photo and go public?" As she spoke, she pulled out her phone, and just before the shutter clicked she rose on tiptoe and kissed my cheek. Something in my chest thumped so hard it felt ready to burst, my breathing completely out of sync. Amid the teasing atmosphere, she hurried back to her seat, edited the picture at lightning speed, added a caption, and posted our couple shot to Instagram with fanfare. Was she finally going to take seriously this romance that had started so absurdly? Yet after all that, she seemed distracted. Faced with my delight and nervousness, she answered me half-heartedly, checking her phone now and then. Only when she received a call from a contact saved as M did she draw a deep breath and cast a fleeting glance out the window. I rubbed my temples and said to her, "If someone's looking for you, then go." But she hung up and shook her head. "What are you talking about? No one's looking for me. It's just work stuff, so annoying." She spoke while glancing at her phone and picked up a bite of food. She probably didn't even notice it was the raw lettuce used for garnish. After eating it, she lifted her wine glass, but the moment her lips touched the rim she seemed to forget why and quietly set it down again. A bad premonition welled up inside me. Sure enough, right after that string of affectionate gestures, her phone started blowing up with calls, one after another. Relentless. Sophia pressed her lips together, then, pretending to be aggrieved, said the company needed her to leave first. Smiling, I told her to hurry back. She gave me a complicated look, hesitated for a few seconds, then turned and left in obvious haste. On an inexplicable impulse I followed, and from a distance downstairs I saw a man standing there. From that angle, he had a perfect view of everything Sophia and I had been doing in the restaurant. A chilling thought jolted me. Was Sophia's flamboyant public announcement meant for this man? She had dashed out, but when she neared the man, Makoto, she slowed and put on an impatient air. She said she was on a date and told Makoto to speak quickly. Makoto, looking heartbroken, asked why she was degrading herself. "Even if I can't marry you," he said, You can't just pick some random guy and throw yourself away. Sophia fell silent for 2 seconds. Her silence felt like a verdict on me, declaring that I really was that random guy. After a long moment she said discontentedly, "How do you know I can't truly fall in love with him?" Makoto gave a rueful smile. "Don't you already know what love feels like?" With that, he pulled Sophia into his arms and kissed her deeply, possessively. It was a fervent, domineering kiss. Sophia froze where she stood. Only a second later Makoto let her go and said, "An avalanche. A tidal wave. Now this is what it means to fall in love. So, Sophia, even if we can't be together, you still can't just find some random guy and ruin yourself." Chapter 4. In that instant, hiding behind the pillar felt like taking 10,000 arrows to the heart. Only then did I realize I wasn't some fated soulmate. I was just the random guy she'd grabbed to provoke Makoto. She loathed Makoto's wavering, so she picked me on a whim. At the bar she singled me out, saying I looked like a player at first glance. She'd wagered I'd pick up a corpse at the bar from behind the pillar. Like a voyeur, I watched them go from fierce arguing to locking in a passionate kiss. They looked exactly like the tortured lovers in an angst-fest romance, while I was merely cannon fodder. A searing pain ripped through my chest, and I decided to break up. Yet, illusion or not, the suffocating weight that Willow had pressed on my chest for 3 years suddenly felt lighter. Maybe that was the withdrawal the doctor had mentioned. Sophia didn't come home until very late. When I checked her Instagram, the lovey-dovey photo was gone. We met again a few days later. Haggard, she came to me and, as though reunited after ages, hooked her arms around my neck and kissed me. Her eyes were shut tight, as if savoring every nuance. I figured she was probably trying to feel whether this kiss had the avalanche and tidal wave Makoto talked about. I pushed her away. She looked aside in panic, guilt and confusion swirling in her eyes. 1,000 needle pricks of pain spread across my chest again. This time I was sure, the suffocation really was fading. Even if she used me first, treating her as a way to wean myself off doesn't seem too much to ask. Chapter 5. In the days that followed, my indulgence made Sophia ever more brazen. She ran hot and cold, whenever she needed me. She flaunted our love like mad. Once she'd succeeded in stinging Makoto, she went ice cold again. Only when Makoto distanced himself once more would she remember me, her handy prop. Through it all, I pretended ignorance, humbly playing the loyal follower. Her besties also knew I was just a stand-in for her true love. They called me a simp with snide, backhanded remarks, sometimes forgetting to hide it from me. Sophia only offered a token, cut it out, now and then. She kept testing my limits, and when she discovered my indulgence had none, her respect for me dwindled. I swallowed the heartache of betrayal and mockery and, bit by bit, completed my withdrawal. I could feel it clearly, every time Sophia, wearing Willow's face, ordered me around. My feelings for Willow diminished a little more. I rarely have that dream anymore. The suffocating weight in my chest has mostly faded. In this pathetic, self-destructive way, I keep saying goodbye to both Sophia and Willow. Chapter 6. I thought I was about to succeed. That night I dreamed of Willow again. As if sensing something, Willow came to say goodbye. She said, "Long time no see. George, are you about to forget me? If forgetting makes you happier, then go ahead and forget me. It's all right." In the dream her figure drifted farther and farther away. The cut on her neck, left by my dagger, still visible. I woke in tears, the pain so sharp I couldn't breathe. So, like a drowning man, I dialed Sophia. She said what a coincidence, she had just been about to call me. Taxis were hard to find out in the countryside. She said, could I pick her up? I headed out without hesitation. Only when I arrived did I learn she'd gone back to her hometown to see the ailing Makoto. Before I could speak she cut me off, telling me not to misinterpret the concern between Fashiao, childhood friends, whether to avoid suspicion in front of me or to keep needling Makoto. She chose the front passenger seat, leaving Makoto alone in the back. Unfortunately, as soon as the car hit the rural road, an out-of-control tractor coming the other way slammed into us. I thought of Willow's departing silhouette from the dream. Panic seized me, and I wrenched the wheel for dear life. Sophia was unharmed. The airbag exploded into me. My vision went crimson, and I was pinned in the driver's seat, unable to move. Through the haze I heard Sophia screaming her lungs out. She was calling for Makoto. In that moment I could feel it. The suffocating weight on my chest was about to vanish completely. My withdrawal was almost finished. Yet when I woke in the hospital, Sophia, eyes red and swollen, broke up with me. Staring at the bandage on my bleeding forehead, she whispered, "Weren't we just fooling around? Why did you take it so seriously?" I was terrified. I begged, "We can break up, but could you wait a little longer?" What I meant was, just let me finish the withdrawal. Pathetic and humble, I drew murmurs from the onlookers. There was pity in Sophia's eyes. Yet she still clenched her fists, and fled in panic. Chapter 7. I knew she was frightened. I'd risked my life to save her, and she couldn't bear that weight. But does a woman like her really fear trampling on someone else's genuine feelings? Or maybe it wasn't fear at all, Makoto was hurt, and she wanted to seize this chance for herself. Whatever the reason, my withdrawal was interrupted just when I was about to beat it. For 3 anxiety-ridden months I waited, convinced that boulder on my chest would drop again. And, of course, it did. I had the dream again and jolted awake. Sitting on the edge of the bed, hands shaking, I lit a cigarette. The smoke filled the air, the same scent as in the dream, yet the pain in my chest only clenched tighter. That was when Sophia's call came, tossed to me like a life-saving straw. Her voice, tinged with disappointment and a hint of grievance, hit me without warning. Everyone's left the bar. George, why haven't you come pick me up yet? It was the exact same voice I'd heard in my dream. My eyes burned, choking back a sob. I asked where she was. Laughter exploded through the receiver. The grievance vanished. Between gasps, Sophia said, "You disgusting simp. I'm playing truth or dare." A bucket of cold water. The shock punched a hole in my despair, and the suffocation on my chest lightened. 3 months on, the withdrawal medicine was working again. Testing the waters, I murmured. "You can call me anything you like, as long as you come home with me." She snorted. "Are you crazy? I'm gaming here, can't you get that? You pathetic simp." Sure enough, the suffocation weakened further. I rose and crushed out the cigarette. "Tell me where you are, Willow," I said. "Let me see you one more time." Silence on the other end. Then, after a beat, "Explain yourself. Who the hell is Willow?" With Sophia's furious shout came a flurry of whispers in the background. "Seriously, isn't he Sophia's simp? Why's he calling some other woman?" "Sophia, maybe he only agreed to pick you up because he thought you were that Willow." "Looks like you lost this round." Having lost the game, Sophia snapped. "Don't think you can fool me by making someone up. I'm giving you an out. The address is sent. If you're not here in 30 minutes, forget ever getting back together." I jumped in the car and sped to the location she'd sent. The pressure on my chest wasn't as crushing as before, yet the stone still hurt. I knew, the angrier Sophia was now, the more she'd demand from me later, the more extreme she got, the better for my withdrawal. Maybe this humiliation would be the final, potent dose. If it failed, it meant Sophia, as my detox drug, had developed resistance. Time to change meds. Chapter 8. The bar was bustling with noise and excitement. Most people stayed just to enjoy the drama, to watch Sophia humiliate the simp who called out the wrong name. When I walked in, they were all watching the time. Someone laughed. "Damn, really didn't even take half an hour. Must have run every red light to get here. This simp is seriously insane," a woman added. "Are guys thinking with their dicks these days? Do they only care about looks? She messes with him like this and he still keeps crawling back." Sophia remained silent, lounging in a dimly lit corner. The shadows covered half her face, making her resemble Willow even more. The moment our eyes met, that drowning sorrow slowly rose up again. Maybe it was the silent pleading and pain in my eyes that somehow pleased Sophia. She curved her lips into a smile, then picked up a glass and poured 3 full cups. In a tone of condescending charity, she said, "Drink them all, and I'll forgive you." As she spoke, the light reflected off her delicate features. From that angle, she really did look like Willow stepped right out of my dreams. I didn't know why she came back to me. Was it because things went south with Makoto again? Or had she genuinely realized how good I was? But that didn't matter. What mattered was that this time, the suffocating pressure was almost gone. The smile at the corner of my lips instantly drew mockery. One of her girlfriends sneered. "Oh my God, look how happy he is." "Sophia, how did you train your dog like this? You have to teach me someday." The words were harsh, but they did nothing to dampen my excitement. I raised the first glass and downed it in one go. I said, "The first one, for myself, for clinging on shamelessly, for never giving up easily." Booze echoed all around, mixed with whispered ridicule. Another friend jeered. "Wow, no shame at all. Comes when called, leaves when dismissed." Sophia let her friends mock me freely. She said nothing, just looked very satisfied as she tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. I took a deep breath, feeling the heavy stone on my chest finally lift. So I picked up the second glass and looked straight at Sophia. I said, "The second one, for Sophia, for treating me like nothing, never showing a shred of decency." This time, the whispers turned into loud jeers and curses. "Damn, I've never seen anyone this pathetic before. He's got to be mentally messed up." "Disgusting." Sophia furrowed her brows slightly, but still let me finish the second glass. My chest felt lighter than it ever had before. A complete release, like I'd never even dreamed of Willow. A bit tipsy now, I grinned. My steps faltered. I grabbed Sophia's hand and examined it carefully in front of me. Her fingers were soft and smooth, definitely not assassin hands. I flipped her arm over and saw a shallow cut. Too shallow. Didn't feel right to the touch. Different from Willow. The room was too noisy. Someone said I'd gone mad with lust for Sophia's body. Even Sophia. For once, lost her usual scornful look. She pursed her lips and said, "George, you're drunk, aren't you? Come on, let's go home." Saying that, she stepped over to support me amid the jeering crowd, but I suddenly pressed her down, eyes locked on the slightly open collar of her shirt. One last check, then I would be reborn in fire. Under the curious and amused stares, I slowly pulled open Sophia's collar. Sure enough, no mole on her collarbone. No sign of laser removal either. Sophia gasped, her voice raspier, trembling as she spoke. "George, not here." Amid the wolf whistles and catcalls, everything became crystal clear. Sophia was not Willow. As a detox, she had already served her purpose. She was of no further use to me. I abruptly pulled away and picked up the third glass. Finally, Sophia looked troubled and raised her hand to stop me. She said, "You can't drink anymore, you're drunk." But before she could finish the word drunk, she met my completely sober eyes with shock. Smiling, I looked at her and said, "This third glass is to mourn the brief, ill-fated bond between us." I tilted the glass, pouring its contents slowly at Sophia's feet. I said, "Sophia, your act was convincing, but in the end, you're not my Willow." In her stunned gaze, I let go of the glass. The shards flew, like a brilliant, shattered dream. Chapter 9. When Sophia realized Willow might actually be real, her face instantly darkened with fury. The next second, she flung her drink right into my face, biting her lip. She said, "George, if you apologize right now and take it back, I won't hold this against you." I glanced at the mess on the floor and smiled at her. I said with a grin, "Come on now, Miss Kim, if you didn't hold grudges, you wouldn't be anything like my Willow." But when Willow really gets upset, she doesn't waste time with petty moves like throwing drinks. She stays calm and cuts straight to the soul. As I spoke, I mimed a knife with my hand and pointed it at my chest. Sophia's face turned crimson. I gave her one last look, then turned and walked away with a smile. The noise and chaos behind me had nothing to do with me anymore. I wiped the drink from my face. "Goodbye, Willow. Since you once left without hesitation, you should never have come back to disturb me." After that night, my life returned to peace. Willow no longer appeared in my dreams. Still, when I had nothing to do, a faint emptiness would linger. Sophia, however, did try to reach out through a mutual girlfriend. The girl said, "I've never seen Sophia so mad. She even hung up on Makoto and decided to go home with you. If you just apologize to her like you used to, this time you'll finally make it out of simp purgatory." I deleted and blocked her immediately. I had made it out. My heart no longer felt like it was being torn apart every day. Even work became easier. Coincidentally, our theater troupe began rehearsing a new play. My co-star was the wildly popular actress Anna. Her joining was a big deal, and the troupe even commissioned a custom-written script just for her. But the moment I got the script in my hands, every hair on my body stood on end. It was a tragic love story about life and death. The male and female leads came from opposing sides. After a series of flirtations and tests, their emotional defenses gradually fell. Their true feelings were buried under lies, caught somewhere between love and lust, between illusion and truth. At the climax, the female lead was the first to pick up the hidden ice pick and stab at the men. That's right, the ice pick wasn't aimed at the men, but the man's dagger still slashed across the woman's throat. Smiling, she died in his arms. In the next life, she said, "Take me home." A giant invisible hand suddenly closed around my throat. Grief surged like a rising tide, drowning me. I asked, "Is the female lead named Willow?" That's when Anna walked in. She entered from outside, light behind her, her figure sharply defined, like her silhouette was edged in gold. A group of people followed, discussing the script. She gave me a polite, distant nod and sat down beside me as naturally as if we'd always known each other. She said, "Willow's a good name. Let's go with that." In just one brief glance from her peach blossom eyes, I felt the illusion creep in, the illusion that she had come here for me. Then she turned away and chatted seriously with the director. I found myself lost in thought, watching the side of her face, so unlike Willow's, until Anna's clear, soft voice reached me. She was speaking to the director. "Then let's try running the scene, if Mr. Wang doesn't mind." As she spoke, she turned her head and looked at me, her eyes quietly asking for my response. I snapped out of my daze. The scene we were about to rehearse was the intimate farewell. The director wanted to test our chemistry. Even with a good script, if the leads don't spark, it won't sell, so I had no reason to refuse. Still, running an intimate scene the very first time we met was bound to feel awkward. The director cleared the room. I routinely asked Anna if she had any concerns about boundaries. Anna nodded, saying she'd already read the script and was fine with it. She took off her knitted cardigan. Underneath was a white lace camisole, outlining every curve of her graceful figure. One of the straps slipped down her shoulder, revealing cool pale skin and a delicately sculpted collarbone, an alluring sight. Anna adjusted the strap as she lifted her head. I was caught completely off guard by the burning intensity and determination in her eyes. With just one look, she was already in character. The calm, elegant, aloof heiress from moments ago had vanished. What replaced her was the Yandere female assassin, twisted, obsessive, and emotionally volatile. She locked eyes with me, step by step drawing closer, eyes flashing between despair and anguish, finally settling into bitter resentment. She threw herself into my arms, embracing me while subtly patting me down. Not finding a weapon, she let out a breath of frustration, then sank her teeth into my neck. I winced and furrowed my brow from the pain. Grabbing the back of her head, she closed her eyes as if surrendering to fate, letting me kiss her recklessly. Breath tangled with breath, we collapsed onto the bed. She straddled me, hair falling forward, breathing uneven. One hand reached behind her back. I closed my eyes and said hoarsely, "Willow, are you going to do it now?" I knew, if the scene followed my recurring dream, she would have already raised the ice pick by now. But the next moment, a tear fell onto my neck. I opened my eyes and saw Anna, her eyes brimming with tears, focused, tender, as if pulling me out of a nightmare. She whispered, "I don't believe in fate." Then she let go. The ice pick fell to the floor with a loud thud, breaking the heavy silence. Anna smiled, her lips curling into a look of serenity and breathtaking beauty. The next second, she leaned down and kissed me, hot and urgent, a kiss like there was no tomorrow. Chapter 10. The director forgot to call cut. It wasn't until Anna sat up, breathing hard, and scolded him with irritation that he snapped back to reality and burst into applause. Amazing. Amazing. That was incredible. The emotion was perfect. But, Mr. Su, why did you change the script on the fly? Weren't you supposed to stab him and then get counter-killed by George? Anna returned to her calm, elegant self. She took the tissue I handed her and put her clothes back on. After a pause, she said quietly, "The way the female lead dies, it leaves a bad taste." I froze mid-sip of water, staring at her in disbelief. On countless nights when I'd woken from dreams, I'd felt the same anger. Anger at Willow for making me kill her, for forcing that guilt onto me. But that anger had always been buried beneath so much sorrow. It felt almost trivial. Sensing my gaze, Anna turned back to me and asked softly, "Am I wrong, Mr. Wang?" Before I could answer, chaos erupted at the door. Sophia stormed in, furious, as my ex-girlfriend. The staff hadn't stopped her forcefully. Fuming, she marched over and grabbed Anna's arm, glaring at me. "You just called her Willow." Anna pressed her lips together. She said calmly, "Could you let go, please? My name is Anna. Willow is just a character I'm playing." But Sophia refused to release her, arrogantly ignoring her response. I frowned slightly and slapped Sophia's hand. She gasped at the pain and immediately let go. Cradling her arm, I said, "Please show some respect to my leading lady." Then, with my thumb, I wiped the lipstick smudge Anna had left at the corner of my mouth. Chapter 11. Sophia froze for a moment, but insisted on having a talk with me. She said she had consulted my therapist and learned about my condition. I don't know what exactly the doctor told her, but clearly, her understanding of the situation was quite different. She believed I had created a woman in my dreams who looked exactly like her, named her Willow, and imagined that this Willow was hopelessly in love with me, devoted, passionate, and willing to die for me. She thought I was sick because of her. So in her eyes, there was some guilt, but even more, satisfaction. She said, "George, I'm sorry. I didn't know I hurt you that badly." I was speechless. I stared at her, trying to figure out where exactly her logic had gone off the rails. She tugged at my sleeve, her voice soft, like she actually felt sorry for me. She said, "You used to touch my neck at night. I get it now. You were dreaming about hurting me. George, you carried so much pain without ever letting me know." I yanked my arm out of her hand. She lowered her gaze. "You resent me, I know. But when you picked me up back then, I thought we were just a fling, that it wouldn't lead anywhere. I didn't realize how deeply you felt. If I'd known you were serious, I never would have treated you that way." I stared at her face, dazed for a moment. I found myself wondering, in the parts of my dream I hadn't seen, would Willow ever have had thoughts like this too? This tragic, dreamlike obsession finally began to show its glitch. Now that I'd had a chance to catch my breath, Sophia kept pushing her own little narrative. "George, I'm sorry. You used that actress to heal from me and even named her Willow. I shouldn't keep letting you down. I'm done being petty. Please, forgive me." It was the first time Sophia had ever lowered her pride for me. When she finished, she looked at me with hope. I stayed silent for a moment, then suddenly laughed. Sophia's lips curled up unconsciously, but I said, calmly, "Did the doctor tell you when I first started dreaming about Willow?" She looked confused. "No, but we've known each other for, what, half a year? Have you been in pain that whole time?" She was still living in her fantasy where I was her loyal simp. I slowly pulled up my medical history on my phone and held it out to her. I said, 3.5 years. Sophia, I've been dreaming about Willow for 3.5 years. She tortured me for 3.5 years. But luckily I met someone who looked just like her. I stared her straight in the eyes, and said each word slowly. I used you to quit her. Sophia stood there stunned, her cheeks visibly flushing red. Don't be mad just yet, I said evenly. You know you never got the short end of the stick. For over 6 months, she came and went as she pleased. I was always generous with money, clothes, gifts, even covered for her boyfriend behind the scenes. In fact, I probably helped speed up their relationship. No matter how you looked at it, she didn't lose anything. I helped her see it clearly, that I owed her nothing. And then I told her, emotionally and logically, she had no reason to ever come back. This mutual use of each other could at least end on decent terms. Sophia stood there, stunned. I had already walked far away when I suddenly heard her laugh, just like she did that day on the phone, vicious and pitiful. Chapter 12. Life was much quieter after that. The suffocating heaviness was gone, replaced by a hollow emptiness in my chest. Fortunately, the stage play officially began production, and whatever emptiness I felt was utterly shattered by Anna. She liked writing fiction and often surprised us by rewriting scenes without warning. What was originally a dark, masochistic one-sided obsession was completely transformed. She and the screenwriter rewrote it into a story of mutual yearning that couldn't find closure. The female assassin's seductive games early in the script veered totally off book. She said, "It's the unexpected collisions that pull Mr. Wong in deeper." And she was right. Every time she appeared unexpectedly, with her bold and striking makeup, it was enough to make me lose focus. The heat in my chest would build until it echoed in my eardrums. I admit, I was moved by a woman other than Willow. At first, I passively accepted those feelings. Then Anna began to want more. She said she wanted me to surprise and disarm her too. Only when both sides strike equally. She said, "Can you make the audience feel something real?" So I asked her, puzzled, "Is this because you like me?" Her cheeks flushed, and then she smiled slightly. "You're pretty good at this," she said, and we both laughed. The director, a bit stunned, hushed us. "Are you acting? Or is this real?" he muttered. To be honest, I didn't really know anymore either. Whatever it was, something called hormones had taken over the theater. As we started to carry the tension off stage too, I heard news of Sophia again. Sophia had been in a car accident. By the time I found out, her bandages had already come off. Most of her injuries weren't serious, but apparently, there'd been trauma to her brain. In the hospital, she was begging, screaming, to see me. In the end, I had no choice but to agree to take her call. She was silent for a long time on the phone. Then, her voice hoarse and trembling, she said, "It's been a while, George. Have you started forgetting me? If forgetting helps you feel better, then go ahead, forget me. It's okay." Months of withdrawal, the emotional wall I had carefully built came crashing down in an instant. The phone slipped from my hand. I didn't bother picking it up. I ran out like a man possessed. Anna grabbed my sleeve and pouted. "We're not done yet. Next scene's where you break the rules." I paused for half a second, but my brain was blank. All I could hear inside was screaming, "Sophia is Willow. Sophia is Willow." Anna couldn't stop me. I ran to the hospital, straight to Sophia's bedside. The bandage on her wrist was gone now. A long, deep scar traced her skin, identical to Willow's. I pulled aside her collar. A tiny mole had just begun to emerge at her collarbone. I collapsed into the chair behind me, and there she was, eyes red, staring straight at me. She said, "It's been a while, George." Just that one sentence, and I knew, this body was Willow. She stared at me for a long time, and her eyes filled with tears. This was the reunion that had traveled through life and death. In her eyes was the joy of finding something lost, but even more, a crushing remorse for everything that had come before. She said, "George, I had this long, long dream. In it, my name was Willow." She looked at me sadly and asked, "That wasn't just a dream, was it?" Of course it wasn't. The pain in my heart was real. The love, buried deep in the dream, was seared into my soul. That sharp pain in my chest returned. The overwhelming love I'd felt for Willow in those midnight awakenings came flooding back. No reason, no logic, just unstoppable. I remembered raising my dagger. I remembered Willow's smile. "Don't forget me, George. Take me home, George." 3 long years of wandering grief. Now it had found a place to land. I thought, I'm about to run over and hold my Willow again. The one who was always meant to be mine. I knew I shouldn't, but I couldn't help myself. Just then, Anna's call came in. She said, "Mr. Wong, how about a private date tonight, with your Miss Lu?" My Miss Lu. The moment I heard that, something was disturbed deep in my mind. After a month of rehearsals, whenever I heard the name, Miss Lu, the first thing that popped into my head was Anna's sarcastic remark. She often said, Someone who really loves you would never let you kill her with your own hands. Her voice continued on the line. Mr. Wong, tonight I want to talk with you about the final scene, how we can revise it to really transcend and break through the theme of inescapable fate. My mind slowly cleared. I resisted the urge to embrace Willow. Right across from me, Sophia was still sobbing. She said, "George, that wasn't a dream, it was real." The knife across my neck hurt, but not as much as the pain of dying without saying goodbye. "George," I thought, "I'd never see you again." That brief moment of clarity in my head was soon drowned by an overwhelming sense of suffocation. Two forces kept pulling me in opposite directions, and it took everything I had not to open my arms to Sophia. I think I made the right choice, because in the very next moment, that man named Makoto burst in. He rushed over and hugged Sophia tightly, pulling out a ring and slipping it onto her finger. He said he had almost thought he'd lost her. Filled with regret, he seemed to have finally seen his true feelings in the face of life and death. He said he would divorce his wife and marry Sophia. He'd take her to register the marriage. Like a bucket of ice water dumped over my head, I was instantly sobered. Just then, Anna's voice returned through the phone, mocking. "How can you tolerate a plot this melodramatic, Mr. Wong?" I pulled myself together and smiled. It felt like some hidden truth was on the verge of being exposed. I agreed to the date with Anna. Chapter 13. When I fled Sophia's hospital room, she was coldly confronting Makoto. The paranoid look in her eyes was nothing like the Sophia I used to know. The change was so sudden, so jarring. I seized the opportunity to escape, yet I still couldn't outrun the waves of emotion that struck me for no clear reason. I managed to dial Anna's number, and the moment she arrived, I gritted my teeth and asked, "You said we could discuss the plot, does that mean anything goes?" There was a sparkle in her eyes as she nodded. As long as you're willing, I'll go along with anything." The next second, I grabbed her, held the back of her head, and kissed her. I carefully savored the sensation the kiss brought. The flutter in my heart, it was real. The tenderness, it was full of love. It wasn't that so-called suffocating feeling. I said, "It seems like my fate was already written by someone." Ending the kiss, I looked into Anna's eyes and said, "You know it, don't you?" She smiled without replying, only gently pinched my arm a few moments later. She said, "Your fate isn't for anyone else to decide." I asked calmly, "What if it's the author? What if I said this world is a novel, would you believe me?" Anna studied me for a moment, then gave a cold snort and said, "What are you even thinking? Don't tell me you're planning to ditch me with this whole 'it's fate' excuse after seducing me." I couldn't see any hint of deeper meaning in her eyes, so I put on my usual sly smile and said, "I didn't seduce you, we were just discussing the plot." I ended the topic on my own terms, but the doubt in my heart had already been answered. I was sure of it. I had developed feelings for Anna, but whenever I saw Willow, I still lost control and fell headfirst. It didn't make sense. I thought, just as I suspected, my fate really was written by someone else. Someone decided that Willow and I were destined to be together. This conclusion didn't come out of nowhere. The moment I started seeing a therapist, I began searching for the reason. A person suddenly appearing in my dreams. The yearning that crossed from dream into waking life, none of it made sense. I thought I had escaped the invisible grip when I succeeded in breaking the addiction. But then, the script appeared. It replayed the scenes, forcing me to relive the painful, tragic romance between me and Willow. It wanted to regain control of me. To test this theory one last time, I said goodbye to Anna and went to the temple, the one I'd been hearing about more and more lately. As if waiting for me, a revered monk approached me and asked if I was troubled by love. I went along with it and asked him to hypnotize me. The dream extended. Sure enough, in my past life, Willow was there. Every scene in the dream had happened in that life. We loved each other, but we were on opposite sides. After great agony, Willow chose to give me the chance to live, and not long after her death, I died of heartbreak. This hypnosis revealed everything, that the current Sophia was Willow reincarnated. All signs screamed that Willow had awakened, and we were meant to continue our story, but I saw more than that. There were scenes I'd never seen before. They were faint, like something had deliberately wiped them away. I tentatively asked the monk, "Those disappearing fragments, were they the path Sophia and I were originally supposed to take?" Because of my withdrawal from the relationship, the obsession, those events never occurred, and so they were erased. The monk averted his gaze and replied in a cryptic tone, "It cannot be said. It cannot be said." At that point, what more was unclear? Even if he refused to answer, I already knew. My life is a novel, or maybe a play. My joy, my sorrow, my rage, all at the mercy of the author's pen. I'm grateful Anna appeared. She inspired me to question the script, to question Willow's dramatic, manipulative suicide attempt. She inspired me to mock that bullshit sense of fate with real actions. Now that everything is clear, I think I know what I have to do next. Chapter 14. That night, for reasons unknown, Sophia didn't come looking for me again. I was finally struck with inspiration, and worked with the director overnight to finalize the performance's ultimate version. Early the next morning, Sophia showed up at the theater entrance, wounded. From afar, with just one glance, her tears began to fall uncontrollably. She looked at me, worn out yet focused, as if 1,000 words would still fall short, so she said nothing at all. I asked a colleague to give her a front-row ticket. The first trial performance today felt as if it had been deliberately arranged, to let us, at the moment of reunion, relive the hardships we'd been through together, as if trying to use this to cancel out the influence Sophia once had over me. When the performance began, Sophia sat silently in the audience. From her aura alone, she already was Willow. So throughout the entire play, every ounce of grief and despair I portrayed, none of it was acting. When I kissed Anna on stage, I couldn't suppress the dark emotions inside me. When I described the future to her, there wasn't a single trace of light in my eyes, only despair. Anna furrowed her brow, trying to encourage me like she had during rehearsals, trying to help me break through the so-called fate, but as I kept hesitating to speak, over and over again, she eventually grew heavy with her own thoughts. Our co-workers around us were shocked. The plot of our performance matched the original script exactly. All the effort we'd put into rewriting it, all those sparks and revisions, none of it showed up on stage. The entire performance felt stifling beyond belief. And then came the final scene. My despair finally infected Anna. She threw herself into my arms, searching my body under the guise of a hug. She deliberately ignored the dagger hidden at my waist. She bit me, and in response, I kissed her wildly, desperately, as if trying to etch the feeling into my very bones. In the height of that passion, she raised the ice pick. I asked, "Willow, is it finally time to strike?" The ice pick stabbed into the pillow beside me. I swung my hand back and slashed Anna's neck. Blood gushed out. Anna smiled in triumph. She said, "George, don't forget me." In that instant, dream and stage were indistinguishable. I collapsed, sobbing, down in the audience. Sophia was also in tears. In her eyes, I saw certainty, sad, but certain. Seeing me break down like that, she was sure that I still loved her, sure that I would reunite with her and finish the love story from our past life. The dreams we'd shared made every glance between us feel like a tacit understanding. The wrenching pain in my chest almost made me believe it too. If Anna hadn't suddenly sat up. Chapter 15. Anna, who was supposed to be dying, mumbled, "Don't forget me," and then suddenly sat up from the floor. She rolled her eyes and said, "What the hell?" And then with a face full of indignation, "Is this female lead mentally unstable or what?" She stood up as she continued, "If she wants to die, she should find a place where no one's around to do it. Why burden others with guilt after she's dead? What kind of plot is this? Seriously, what's wrong with the director?" The play wasn't over. This was the final version I had discussed in advance with the director. A play within a play. The onlooking co-workers whispered excitedly among themselves, leading the grief-stricken audience toward a new interpretation. Someone said, "Yeah, why should someone else's hand be the one to end it? That's just emotional blackmail disguised as love, and asking not to be forgotten and brought back home. What's that about? Prepping for a reunion in the next life? These days, they're writing painful drama just for the sake of pain. Even dogs wouldn't act in this crap." Sophia visibly turned pale. She stared at me, trying to read something from my expression. I patted the dust off my pants and stood up with Anna's help. Seeing the wound on Anna's neck, I muttered that the special effects makeup was way too intense. Anna complained, "You're so rude. You were the one who insisted on shooting a tragic drama. We were just cooperating with your vision of how painful one could make pain. And now you're criticizing me." As I wiped the paint off her fake wound with a tissue, I chuckled awkwardly. "Well, unless you lived through it yourself, how could you know that the one who survives is the one in the most pain? According to the script, not only does he have to carry guilt for a lifetime, he also has to repay her in the next one. Supposedly in the next life he'll be called a simp, bossed around, heart and body tormented until the female lead finally regains memories of their past life. And only then, with the weight of a life-saving debt, can the male lead be reunited with her." As I finished speaking, I saw from the corner of my eye that Sophia was clutching her chest tightly, her breathing uneven despite trying to suppress it. That kind of pain, I know it all too well. So many nights, in dreams that felt too real, it tortured me deeply. I wrapped my arm around Anna's shoulder and said, "The female lead was mute. Apparently, what if she had just spoken up? Asked the male lead what solutions he might have. She didn't even try, just made her decision and died. I think maybe she knew herself too well." Anna looked up at me and asked, "Knew what? Exactly?" I replied, "I guess she might have known all along that she was no match for the male lead. So she used this move, forcing him to carry guilt for 2 lifetimes even after winning." Anna smiled faintly. "That line, I completely made it up. But what can I say? I've been such a coward these past years. Sophia had curled up in her chair, crushed by despair. Even her outline radiated hopelessness. Watching her like that, of course I felt pain, especially after just going through that hypnosis session, reliving everything between Willow and me from our past life. But if I was going to break free, it would cost me a layer of skin. In the final scene of the play, Anna tilted her head and asked me, "Then I have a question for you, after all this. Do you love me more than you loved Willow in the play?" I knew what she meant. She was asking not for the character, but for herself. I looked deeply toward the audience below the stage. All those entangled threads, all that sense of destiny and the overwhelming urge to throw myself into it without hesitation. It made it hard to speak, but I didn't want to surrender. I didn't want to surrender to the one who had control over my fate yet refused to show me the slightest mercy. So I clung to Anna's outstretched hand like it was my last lifeline. I stared into Anna's eyes with full focus. In them, there was love. In them, I saw the spark that genuinely moved my heart. So I smiled and said, "Why do you keep asking these things? Destiny? That's just a self-soothing lie made up by people who want to feel special. I was just reading a novel. Why are you jealous of a fictional character? It was just a dream. I wasn't going to take it seriously." Anna threw herself into my arms, delighted. The closing music played, and part of the soundtrack included the narrator's voiceover. Destiny, so-called, is nothing but a false proposition. Even if causality is inevitable, and the arising and fading of will is predetermined, the outcome remains unknowable, because the moment one perceives a result, a new cause is born, leading to a new effect, and so on, endlessly. There is no final conclusion. The curtain fell. I saw Sophia collapse in tears on the floor, and then be completely shut out beyond the curtain. Chapter 16. This play, which used fatalism as its central theme, had a wildly successful first preview. Anna and I would go on to tour with it for dozens of performances. After that night, I never saw Sophia again. I believe that the Willow I once loved, she was at least intelligent. Sooner or later, she would see, just like I did, the cracks in that uncontrollable fate, as someone who had also been manipulated by destiny. I truly wished her a swift and complete liberation. Chapter 17. After completely severing ties with Willow, my symptoms gradually improved. I could almost be sure I had finally broken free from the pen that once controlled me. At the final stop of the tour, I finally confessed my feelings to Anna, not on stage, nor in the rehearsal room, in a private setting, with no role to hide behind. I asked her solemnly if she would be willing to be with me. Once again, I saw certainty in someone's eyes. Dozens of performances, countless ambiguous moments during rehearsals, and all the times when true emotions slipped through, those had made it clear to her that I would confess sooner or later. I said, "Anna, thank you for coming into my life, for helping me break through everything that held me back." I held up the ring in front of her. She reached out to take it, but I pulled the ring back. I asked flatly, "Letting me propose to you and put this engagement ring on your finger, isn't that your mission objective in this strategy, right?" Anna stood frozen in shock. The same Anna who had acted through countless scenes with me actually looked flustered. It took her a long moment to compose herself. Then she pressed her lips together. She said, "All right, you caught me." How could someone who broke free from destiny not see through my tricks? I didn't respond. In truth, I hadn't known from the start that she was a player in a love strategy game. At first, I only suspected she had something to do with Willow. Watching her constantly emphasize breaking free from fate, I thought she was my salvation from above, until Sophia awakened. What I saw in her eyes was panic, but not the kind that comes from losing a lover. And when I found out this was all just a novel, I dared to make that bold guess. It was only a guess. Even just now, my so-called certainty was laced with testing, and she gave me the worst possible answer. The room was deathly silent. An intimacy stripped of illusion now looked fragile and fake. Sweet moments from the past surged forth, slapping me in the face. I lit a cigarette. The smoke made Anna squint and frown, like it might bring tears to her eyes. I broke the silence first. "So what happens when the mission's successful?" Through the smoke, she looked at me for a long time and said, "I leave. Go back to my world." Anna must have been scared. Who doesn't want to go home? She was one step away from success. She must have feared I wouldn't let her go. I nodded, took her hand, and once again lifted the ring engraved with the initials of our names. I slipped it onto Anna's finger. Her tears fell. She pretended the smoke had choked her and used a cough to hide it. No need for guilt. I smiled as I wiped away the tears from her cheek. We both got what we wanted. Anna looked at me in confusion. Since she was the strategist, the one playing a role to complete her goal, she should have known. Back then, the psychiatrist gave me two options. One was to quit cold turkey, through Sophia. The other was displacement, falling in love with someone else. Anna was just another dose of medicine. From the moment I saw the script and then met her, I had my doubts. And since she came to me, there was no reason not to use her. Anna understood instantly. After a moment of silence, she suddenly smiled. I smiled too. She picked up the red wine glass beside her. I clinked mine against hers. She said, "Pleasure doing business, Mr. Wong." I replied, "A real pleasure, Miss Liu." We were so happy that we burst into tears. Chapter 18. The final performance ended with a flawless curtain call. On stage, Anna held me tightly and refused to let go for a long time. I said, "This time, it's truly goodbye, Miss Liu. Leave with peace of mind. I'll be fine between you and Sophia. I don't love either of you. I would never fall for some predestined arrangement. And I would never revolve around a player like some background NPC. Breaking free from fate, like shedding a layer of skin, was never about becoming someone else's choice. It was about choosing, simply because I wanted to, nothing more." Anna finally let go of me. We turned and bowed together for the last time. And I, after going through 2 unforgettable, passive entanglements, had finally taken back the right to be free.